I'm your host, Aseer. This is another Fireside chat. Today we're talking about knowing the root and origin of whatever it is you put your mental energy into. We came in here and sat down, and there was a bunch of Mormons sitting over there compared to the Mormons.
So you have three white boys and... Okay, well, no, you have three white boys and one black.
So then, what happens is this.
He said he's not white.
Because, again, the Negro defended him.
The Negro... Okay, wait a minute. Let's go back. No, I'm going to do real quick, just because he said they're not all white. One is the Mexican, or Olmec, right? Something that's not Caucasian. You have two blue eyes, and then you have one brother that supposedly is from Haiti. So I'm like, wow, interesting to see a brother that's a Mormon. And so then this is the story.
Let's talk about the history that they don't tell them. One of the histories is there was a guy named Brigham Young, a guy named Joseph Smith. Brigham Young was a dude who basically carved out a place in Utah after the traditional Moorish Empire. After the traditional Moorish Empire was broken up. So when they started to get rid of Moors and people that look like me, a lot of the Freemasons who adopted the Moorish science in secret, like Brigham Young, decided to incorporate a lot of the tenets of the Moors into this new pseudo-religion that he was trying to create. Because what they wanted to do was create a religious path for themselves to live as Moors without really being Moors. So he comes up with this whole Book of Mormon thing, and then comes up with the gods of this that were called the Mormoni. Now the Mormoni were the gods who basically allegedly came down and built with Jesus when he came into the American shores. Now all of this came from the Circle 7 Quran as well as the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ. But what the Book of Mormon does have is it talks about the 364 years of intermittent conflict between the original tribes, the Amalekites, the Levites, the this, the that were already over here. So after a certain amount of time, he got a bunch of Caucasian people who were trying to leave and get out of the jurisdiction of the Union. So he brought them to a place called Utah and basically set up the tenets of what would be the so-called Mormon religion. So the problem with that, though, was that he basically set himself up to be the prophet, but he himself was only a 32nd degree Freemason that was basically out of the Knights of Pythias Lodge, as well as it was the Knights of Pythias and the Knights of the Golden Circle. But what happened was when he decided to adopt Moorish science and start living with his people, like the reason why this is why they practice polygamy, this is why they dress in all white, this is why they act like they follow the Bible, but really this dude was setting himself up to be a white Moor, what's called a tawny Moor. So the United States government knew that he was basically trying to set up his own thing to make himself God. So what they decided to do was attack them. And so the Mormons agreed that the only way that they could still be a religion is if they get away from some of the tenets of the Moorish science. So right now, the gods in the Moorish science, the gods of the Mormons, are the Moors, but they don't know that because they're encoded in the term Moroni, M-O-R-O-N-I, right? That is the God, but that is a code. That's a code word. But because they're not initiated into the higher mysteries of the whole thing, they don't really know. So they'll look at somebody like us and think that we clowning them. But really, they need to build with us if they want to know why they're not getting certain knowledge or why they're not being promoted. So one of the terms they use for their acolytes or slaves is elder. Because they want to make them think that they're older than they really are, because they're really not. The term elder, this is also the connection with the Moorish name, because El in elder is the eels of the Moroni, which represents the Moors on high, right? Gave Brigham Young the science for him to set up the pseudo-religion that they call Mormonism, which is really a deified, bastardized version of Moorish science, what do you call it, Scottish Rite, Freemasonry, and and limited Judaism based upon their attachment to the Old Testament. Judeo-Christianity, essentially. But they're practicing Moorish science, which is why they deal with polygamy, which is why they dress in all white, which is why they call their spot, which is why they call their place of worship a temple, which is why they follow the Moors on high. When you look at the pictures of the Moors on high, the Morana, right? It's a bunch of Moors making salat. I know because my man went to the Crystal Temple that they don't know about in Utah and seen the whole thing. And it's a bunch of Moors like me with fezzes and all of that. And he asked them, he said, well, who is this? They said, oh, those are the Morana. So now he's a Moor. Now he looked to see, and he looked at it, he's like, oh, so the Morana are the Moors on high. Okay, these are the ones that gave you the safrai. But see, all of that is 86 name because they gotta keep the racial specific aspect of this going. So the Mormons used to teach that black people came from mud people, right? Came from mud, right? So this is a bastardized version of the history of us being brought up from the dust, right?
Or from the clay.
Or from the clay, right? But that's not the first man made in the image of the Creator. That was the elite man made from the dust, who would be the slave. So they also have genetic testing in the Mormon thing, where they try to test your genetics to see where you come back from, but really they're not telling you.
Some Scientology?
Yeah, it's pseudo-Scientology.
Yes.
But what they're not telling you is what they're doing with them genetics. It's a mind control thing. Any religion that's based upon a secular idea that's coming from an ancient aboriginal context, but is now couched in some sort of Freemasonic bullshit, what you're dealing with is mind control on a mass level. So a lot of these guys will talk about, you know, the Book of Mormon is this and that. I've read it. It's dope because it talks about the aspects of Moorish history that they have not qualified as that. They call the Moors in those books the Amalekites, the Amalekites, the Zidonites, the Jebusites, the Zionites, all of these different tribes of Moors that were here in North Central South America as well as over in the East. When they talk about Isa, they talk about one of the biggest selling points of the book was that it talks about how Isa came from over here to America after he resurrected himself and all of this other shit. All of this shit come out of the Circle 7 Quran. All of this shit come out of the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ. All of this stuff come out of the Muslim customary law that Brigham Young himself was studying at the time that he came up with the idea of setting up the thing. So Joseph Smith popped it off. But that's all because he took the knowledge of the so-called neophytes, who are the Moors, right, who gave him this science. But because he betrayed his Masonic oath with the United States government, that's why, to keep it secret, that's why they went and tried to shut down everything, and they wound up moving all the way to Utah. So the main home office that they with in Utah is there, but right next to the Crystal Temple is what? A Scottish Rite. A Scottish Rite temple with sphinxes and all this other shit on it that the high elders go to, but they don't tell the young ones. You see what I'm saying? Because the young ones is the foot soldiers that go out there with no real knowledge and try to convert the weak-minded. But the Bible said, "Come to me, those who seek me shall find me. Those who seek me in another will find another." So you can't be talking about you reading the Bible and the Book of Mormon, because that's a contradictory to the very Bible or scripture that you say that you down with. Because your man Brigham, your man Joseph, these niggas was reading not only the Bible, they was reading the Quran, where they got a lot of this knowledge from, but they'll never tell them that because they only deal with people that's on a lower frequency. So what I say is there's a phrase in Latin that says qui cumalio contrahit vel est vel debet esse, which means he who knows the contract should know what the contract itself is attached to. So this means that if you are believing and giving your soul to something, know the very tenets and the roots of where it came from. Because genetically there is a lot of, like, right, nothing is authentic anymore. So if you want to be authentic, you got to go to the root of whatever you're giving your spiritual energy to, because you could be duped into believing things in this world are real when really they are set up to block you genetically from your own gods,
from your own inheritance,
ancestors, your own genetic line, your own people. Like I said, they was teaching these people, like I was saying, they were teaching these people that black people came from mud. You understand what I'm saying? So now these same people that was teaching you that you was coming from mud and as a slave, these are the same people that's going to deal with you equality with their God. You're going to go and worship their God when their God is basically is based on your ancestors. You asking for a spiritual, you need what they call a shakabuku, a swift spiritual kick to the head. So in that, we want to give thanks and praise to the true creator of the universe. We want to give thanks and praise to everybody to be under their own vine and fig tree, and for those people to really be about what they say they're about and know the origin of who you are, because if you don't, they will tell you and convince you that you're from everywhere else. But in the end, you will always be you, and they will always be them. And first in time, the Moors, right? The melanated people, the darker races of the planet,
which
first in line.
And will include all, but it's interesting when the all won't include us.
Indeed. So again, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, be under your own vine and fig tree, know your culture, know your history. Peace. Also subscribe to my page, Aseer the Ducateers, as well as the beautiful Selena Cordoba L.
I'm on the other side,
and
because that's how we do. We have to support each other.
Hit me up on more of the science. I even got pictures of their gods. This shit is crazy. So, peace.